Hey guys, it's Genevieve, and in this week's video, I am doing a quick review of the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bombay India inks. Now, this is the first set. I think there are a total of maybe 2 or 3 sets of these types of inks, and this is the first time that I am trying out inks. I have used watercolors many times in the past, but I've seen several artists here on YouTube use inks, and the majority of people who use inks, especially inks of good quality, swear by these on their grandmother's grave. So I've decided that I want to give these inks a try and just kind of see how I like them, because I kind of have an on and off relationship with watercolors. Sometimes I really like them, other times I don't feel like putting in the effort to use them. So it was a good change of pace to use something that was similar enough to where I had kind of an idea of what I was doing, but kind of also different, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So my first impression of these inks is that they are very pigmented, especially if you're doing a wet on dry technique, which is basically you dip your paintbrush in the ink and you put it on the paper. No water, no nothing. It's just ink on paper. And I was kind of going for a bit of a softer look in this piece, so figuring out that I kind of needed to be a bit more careful in terms of how much ink I put on my brush was a bit of a learning curve, because with watercolors I feel like I'm constantly having to fill my paintbrush with watercolor, and even then I'll barely get the pigment that I want. So like I said, it was a bit of a learning curve, because these obviously are very different from watercolors in a variety of ways, but at the same time I was also very pleased with the pigment, especially when I wanted the pigments to be very bright, very vibrant, and very dark and pigmented. So I was quite pleased in that respect. One thing that I figured out quite early on is that, like with watercolors, you can use the wet on wet technique, which is basically when you dip your paintbrush in water and you lay it down on the piece of paper first, and then you dip up the ink and basically just lay it on over the water, and it gives the inks a bit more of a watercolor look, that being they're a bit more transparent, and you need to layer them a bit more, but that didn't really bother me very much, because it meant that I could use the wet on dry technique to get a really vibrant and pigmented color, but then I could use the wet on wet technique to get more of a kind of transparent, softer look. So in this respect, I was really quite pleased with the inks and kind of how I was able to achieve the best of both worlds. I was able to get a lot of really bright and vibrant pigments, because honestly, these colors are absolutely beautiful and I love the way that they look. But if I wanted a bit more of a softer or, not quite as harsh look, then I could just use the wet on wet technique and I can achieve that. The one thing that I wish I kind of did a little bit better was the layering on the bark of the twigs. I feel like towards the end I got a bit heavy-handed in my layering. I was starting to add shading and details. I was using the reds and the browns and the greens to kind of add depth to the twigs, so that they weren't just flat brown lines, basically, is what I was trying to do. And I thought, because ink generally tends to not be, oh god, what's the word I'm looking for? Reusable? Basically, you can't add water to it and then, reuse it. Once the ink has dried, you can't add water to it and use it again. It's done, it's dry. And I thought that would be the case for on the paper as well. But I found that as I was adding more and more layers to the bark, especially for the one in the middle, like the centerpiece, I found that the ink started kind of coming up in certain places, which I was not very pleased with. However, it doesn't look as bad as I thought it did when it originally started happening. And honestly, it's a brand new medium for me, so I'm still kind of learning the ins and outs of it. So I'm not too mad about it, but it's definitely something that I want to be careful about in the future, because it's kind of like watercolor in that respect, where you have to be really, really careful about the layering you do, because I'm a very heavy-handed layerer. I will add colors and colors and colors on top of each other all day long. And you can't really do that with watercolor, because if you go too heavy-handed with the water, you will reactivate. That was the word that I was looking for. Reactivate. You will reactivate the layer underneath, and then the colors will get all muddy and brown and gross, and that's why I get mad at watercolors sometimes. So, yeah. Overall, I am incredibly pleased with these inks, and I plan on using them a lot more in coming weeks and months and pieces and that stuff. I don't know if I'll completely abandon watercolor, just because despite my grievances with it, I do have a lot of experience working with it, so even if it does upset me to no end sometimes, it is a nice medium to work with. But you know, for what I paid for these inks, and I think it comes with a set of hold on, let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Like 12 inks, and I think it was like $35. I think it's a pretty good deal, and I am incredibly pleased with both the quality of the inks and the results I was able to achieve in my piece with them. So yeah, definitely plan on using these more in the future. If you're thinking about getting yourself a set of inks, definitely recommend this brand. This is not sponsored, obviously. I don't have enough subscribers to be sponsored, but I would say if you're going to invest in a set of inks, invest in a set of good inks, because that's another way that inks and watercolors are kind of similar to each other. If you want to have an easy time with them, then you're going to want to invest in a good quality set. And I think the Dr. P.H. Martins are a very good and quality set, although I don't really have too much to compare them to, but, you know, for how much fun I had with this piece and how little trouble I had working with the inks, I think that's a pretty good indication of how good quality they are. So, yeah. That is my quick little review of the Dr. P.H. Martins Bombay India inks. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you leave a like down below and subscribe to my channel for more videos coming every Monday and Thursday. Mondays are vlogs, and Thursdays are little arty videos like these, or just whatever I feel like posting that week. Anyways, thank you all again so much for watching, and as always, I will see you all next time. Bye!
have this